It is Thursday, January 26th, 2023. Um, this morning, um, I was watching CBS Mornings. On it, they have this image of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. They have an interview of an agent, um, and I'll take possession of the fact that Um, I'm here in the northern region, and it's a team effort to keep the children safe. So for me, I'm watching over them, watching over the waters, and listening very carefully. They're saying that there are boats coming over from both Haiti um, and Cuba. I'm watching as these boats come over, and then I'm reminiscing over the lies I was told in great lengths by Hollywood, the movie industry, throughout the TV shows and the large networks, about this roots. Like, it's almost like a theory, that I don't like necessarily. I mean, it has a binding effect, to hold one accountable, but that's in quiet private management of whatever keeps security in these lands. They told this story on this movie production when I was first born. I was too young to have watched it or to known of it, but it was a big theatrical televised event called Roots. It made it seem like the white man had these slaves chained to boats and were driving them over for free or cheap labor. I'm looking at what actually takes place during my life frame and that of the special cosmology children that I've had, star children that I've had, and what the humans are announcing and using as this running African tie story to North America does not jive with what U.S. Borders Patrol is actually making a record of for their actual profession. In their eyes, these boats are coming over from these countries, but like, again, here's the thing. I sit in my quiet and I'm thinking, they're coming over. Are these people on these boats independently wealthy? What are their expectations when they get here? And what are our expectations? Since I know from New York, I did not offer an invitation to either of those islands to just allow boats to enter the lands of North America. I've also in my life frame witnessed CBS reporting that Latin American humans of some sort walked themselves from a most southern tip state outside of the Union of the States and walked themselves into the United States rather than taking a boat. But some take boats from outside islands and then try to make entry this way. Um, during which in New York, there seems to be some guerrilla occupation. And I also have been harmed during what I perceived and what I've documented in the local police department, as well as on surveillance camera outside of the local police department, and on my own documentary of how they just came into the house and then did horrible things and also anesthetized me. So I didn't even know part of the time what they were up to. Um, but they did not have my authority or permission to place their hands on me, their handcuffs on me, or to inject me with anesthetized drugs in order to perform whatever they were trying to perform. Now, I went to the local library. I'm having trouble with my eyes. There's some kind of what I would perceive to be detergent in the water that causes, when I squeeze a lemon of citric acid, it causes a foam. So I know there's something in the tap water, even when it's boiled, even with what I have access to in order to try to cleanse the water, being a simple charcoal filter, it's still not taking out the harmful detergents from the water. Um, and I'm having some neurological and motor disruptive disrupts disruptive disruptions. I'm having trouble standing on one leg. At times, I'm trying actively to repair. I had a sudden loss in blood volume out of nowhere, forcing me into a hospital situation where then they had to give me transfusions. I just found out Linda was watching a movie yesterday. Um, Emma Thompson was in it, which I actually was like, oh my God, it's an elder that, like, I mean, it's one piece of reality that seems somewhat familial. Outside of my ability to obtain friendship with, however, it looked like a mother figure of sorts on the Hollywood screen. She was doing something with something called a child act, about, and I something with a Jehovah Witness. In this area, Jehovah Witnesses have come only in one color, which is brown. I have never seen them anything other than brown. It's really confusing. But that thing about the not taking blood from the version in New York that are calling themselves Jehovah's Witnesses, that makes sense. I would die if I took a blood transfusion from a brown person. I have a different antigen level and a different, it's scientifically proven. Um, it causes mass coagulation, and apoptosis, which means that it causes large hemorrhagic altercations that would end up in my demise. So I get that I can't take blood transfusions from just anyone. Um, but I did see the movie. I know that there are religious people that are extremists. It's just the filters that they use, and then who to whom they allow into their religions is a major concern as to how that message gets passed forward. Um, there's this television show also called, put out by HBO, called Westworld. And in it says, have you ever questioned the nature of your reality? And I'm really, in my quiet, sit and think on this. I looked on a map yesterday of where, I mean, I've run the Michaels mile. I've gotten myself up from point 0.6 of a mile run now to daily, or 5 times a week, around 5 to 8 miles. So I've worked my way up consistently, even with the health issues that I'm still having, um, balance orientation, that kind of thing. And I noticed that when I go to Oakland Lake, right now I'm trying to stay away from the wind coming off the water at the the VIK, or the Bay, BAY. And so I am running around this lake, and just beyond where the lake is, because it's covered by trees, there's a park called Horatio Park. So questioning the nature of my reality, it has the 49ers and it has Horatio. So I went to the library. I'm having trouble with my eyes. It's part of this decreased body function. The water is a concern of mine, but there's others. Some of the chemicals that they put in the food, I don't have access to the FDA. I don't even know how to start an inquiry. Lack of Union or Confederate, I don't even know the difference. Access to those members, I don't know which one I should be trying to seek solace with, but I took a version of Hamlet out. This is the easier version. I have a harder version as well to compare it with. This one's called No Fear. So I figured I would do a step up. It has side by side plain language with it. So I'm reading about the characters. Now I know at the moment I live in a station of sorts. I call it Bayside Station because it has an MTA LIRR station of mass transit, which the railroads were laid by whatever it was laid by. But that's my heraldry and my heritage in this area, along with building of whatever. So there's that. They've called this place a village at times. It has a main street. It has a U.S. Post box. It has a fort. If these things are working in the way that someone else in an official capacity would expect when I say those words, I am not clear. I don't know if it's a working fort. I don't know the word constructs. I don't know how to find that out. I don't know who to ask. Again, if I was born with a ladder to climb to get to a hand to hold, I feel like that's been disrupted somehow by someone, and I don't know whom. I'm reading here. I'm in a community that looks very AAPI, is how they gender neutralize themselves or they gender identify. I don't know how that happened. When my grandfather here, it was Polish and it was Italian, Northern Italian. It was Greek, but a very specific kind of Greek. When he first bought into this area. And then at some point, it turned very Asian in AAPI. I don't know what level of Asian. They know who they are. I'm not an aficionado. I do not know how to discern the difference between the different providences and the different colonies of that sort of decipher. But I do know that in Hamlet, which is written into the local, Horatio is written into the local with the 49. So for that 40 show of 19th century of the parents that I arrived to, there's natural built-in landscape. There's also Cloverdale. So I'm reading who Horatio was. It says, Hamlet's close friend who studied with the prince at the University of Wittenberg. W-I-T. As in, is that witty? It might be. Might come of the line of 10. My aunts and uncles on the American side had 10, for which I arrived to. And then Berg, B-E-R-G, for B, B-E, and again, apiary on that, and then an R-G. It says, Hamlet trusts Horatio above any of the other characters, valuing him for his even temper and equanimity, qualities that Hamlet seems to despise in himself. Horatio is loyal and helpful to Hamlet throughout the play. After Hamlet's death, Horatio remains alive to tell Hamlet's story. Now, if I go back to the characters in the beginning of Hamlet, it says Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark and a student of the University of Wittenberg. At the beginning of the play, Hamlet's father, King Hamlet, has recently died, and his mother, Queen Gertrude, has married the new king, Hamlet's uncle Claudius. Hamlet is melancholy, bitter, and cynical, full of hatred for his uncle and disgust at his mother for marrying him. When the ghost of Hamlet's father appeared and claims to have been murdered by Claudius, Hamlet becomes obsessed with avenging his father's death, but keeps thinking of reasons why he should wait before killing Claudius. Claudius is the king of Denmark, Hamlet's uncle, the villain of the play. Claudius is calculating, ambitious politician, adept at manipulating others for his own ends, and willing to execute, assassinate, or murder to stay in power. Claro. Here I have papers from briefings from the Vikings on how they want their portion to be handled. It says that the Vikings lived in Northern Europe during the Middle Ages. I am now, chronologically, in something they would consider middle age of a woman. It is not a flattering term, but neither has any of my stay here in this part of New York. They were Norsemen or Northmen who became known as Vikings for the Old Norse word for bay or creek, Vik, spelled V-I-K. They originally settled in Scandinavia. Lands are now Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. That is their word patterns for how they identify elsewhere. Vikings spoke their own language called Old Norse. Here, they call it English. Technically, if it's North America, I speak American. I speak North American. I speak New York. They played a major role in Northern Europe during the Middle Ages, especially during the Viking Age, which took place they have a catalog date of 800 to 1066. It talks about the settlements of Scandinavia and the centuries with Great Britain, Scotland, Germany, and Iceland. Again, it has a very NATO feel to it. Into northeastern Europe, including Russia. They also settled on the coast of northern France, where they established Normandy, meaning Northmen. And then they have mention of Leif Erikson, who is Eric the Red, for clarity on whatever. And then it says, in 1066, the Vikings, led by King Harald Hardrada of Norway, were defeated by the English, and King Harald Godwin's son. So when I get a letter at the door of Lloyd Harbor that says that I work for God, the G-O-D, and I had never heard of such a thing before, such a person before, I didn't know what it was, and I had to ask the 4th grade class in front of Mrs. Harrison, what is this God? Do you all know of it? It's spelled G-O-D. Am I pronouncing it correctly? And in front of the entire class, Philip Cardillo was present, by the way. I think he was my one reliable whatever in the room. I don't know if Jackie Liebberg was there just yet. She may have been witness as well. And then it speaks of this battle is often used to symbolize the end of the Viking Age. They stopped expanding their territory and their raids became less frequent. One of the major reasons the Viking Age came to an end was the coming of Christianity. Scandinavia was converted from pagan religions to Christianity and became part of Christian Europe. The Vikings became more a part of mainland Europe. The identity and boundaries of the three countries, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway, started to form. And that is the end of the Viking history. They mentioned the ships were long ships. They were narrow boats. Narrow, very specific keyword, Narrow. And they had oars, Oars, and they would, by crew, paddle with only their upper arm strength. Now, the day before that piece of briefing came home something on, and there is something here. It's very important. It says about Eric the Red and Leif Erikson. It says that in one of the centuries, I have it marked here, the Vikings were at the peak of expansion. One Viking, Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, actually made it to North America. He started a brief settlement in present-day Canada. This was hundreds of years before Columbus discovered America. Now, I've met two Erics. One Thomas Jefferson knows about, and then the other one, I call him the millionaire hottie in modern terms to the local gals at the school district, just to keep his whatever, just so he knows what his nickname was. But he worked at World Gym, or he was working out at World Gym the same time that I was there in my 30s. Now I'm in my 40s. So colonization, so that was the Viking history. Now this, they came home the day before. It's the colonization for gold, God, and glory. It's a cross-curricular focus. Historical social studies. This is the desires and hearts of kings, emperors, and explorers. It's their version to my virgin ears. Converts, establishing new colonies, cartographers, circumnavigation, and then in here it has a date of 1519. Now this, I don't know if this is AAPI specific, but I saw yesterday on the See the BS, they have a very brown skin project going on right now called the 1619. I don't know how that conflicts with my Ferdinand Magellan and the 1519 project, or finality that they put in historical reference and context. One, the 1619, she was Pulitzer Prize winning or prize winning, I don't know what the difference is, but it's not like in coming through a actual curriculum that the school is pronouncing to the children. It's more of like an elective, somebody else's version of something. So this is 1519 reference for Ferdinand Magellan and the circumnavigation, and his desires for Asia and exploration and trade routes and so on and so forth. But this has a very Latin context to it. And Magellan, the strait being right off the coast of South America or Latin America, I being in the northern hemisphere, not south of the equator, just so the Americas don't get confused with whatever and whatever. Now, this is what Border Patrol is telling me is coming from islands just to the south, trying to get into North America, and very specifically where they're coming from and what they look like. This is a modern version of what public service announcement, if that's what it's categorically professed as, and the professionals working that area of U.S. security.
We're back now at 7:30 here on CBS Mornings, and there is an unfolding humanitarian crisis off the coast of Florida. as migrants from Cuba and Haiti take to the sea in a desperate effort to reach the U.S.
Now, I did not offer them invitation, not to New York, and not to cross the sea in a vessel and try to make landfall. I have not been asked. I have not been brought into a board of executives or directors. I am not, I mean, I don't have money to feed or fund these people. And I don't know what their expectations are once they're here. So I don't know how they could possibly be making legal landfall or crossings ever when they are just more hungry mouths to feed. And I don't know what thinks it's funding what. That gets into other areas of management. Interestingly enough, I was invited to Canada for a business trip with Exit when it was broker owner training. And one of the dragnet names, who's the executive on that, and at his gala, I was wearing black and white. I had a white flower in my hair, actually, very reminiscent of that over there on the wall. But anyhow, so I get on a plane with Tiafrio 1975. I had bought a ticket for Canada. I went to the airport. I went through security. But for some reason, I don't remember them. Like back in the day, they used to stamp the country you were going to. The TSA agent did not stamp the passport, I don't think. And they let us board the plane. And then I don't know what happened after that. We got to wherever the plane took us. And we met with whomever we met with, and I was just a passenger. And some things, whatever. So that's interesting. And I don't know why. And then just yesterday, the reason why it came up was Tiafrio brought out his passport for something that he's doing. And he was looking through his passport and he noticed that there was no stamp from the trip to Canada that we went on, or I purchased the tickets to go to. So that did not sit well with me in actuality, based on some of the other stuff that I have had happen to me in New York, he being one of them. So it's just, I don't know, a footnote, I suppose, at this point.
Last weekend, the U.S. Coast Guard intercepted this vessel with nearly 400 people on board from Haiti. Officials say more than 4,000 migrants have made their way to this country by boat since August alone. Manuel Bojorquez has got a first-hand look at the efforts to stop these dangerous crossings. Manny, good morning.
Good morning. Some of the agents we met are actually from Ohio, but they've been sent down here to help patrol these waters. Just how much are they needed? The Coast Guard says since October, they've intercepted nearly as many Cuban migrants as they did the entire last fiscal year.
If you have ID, a state ID, that'll be fine.
Their mission is to root out any kind of illegal activity off the Florida Keys. But agents with Customs and Border Protection's air and marine operations say more often than not, it's in plain sight.
There's been a pretty, I would call, substantial uptick in migration from Haiti and Cuba. It's been massive, I would say.
Massive.
Yeah.
Agent John Epoloni says it's not lost on him what they've risked to get here.
I have a 4-year-old son, and I saw we interdicted a small vessel that had a child that was approximately my son's age, and he was terrified. And it was something that I'll always remember it. But again, we have a job to do.
Those stopped at sea are deported, so many jump in the water trying to reach the shore. But even if they touch land, there is no guarantee they'll be allowed to stay. Since last October, CBP's Miami sector has responded to more than 250 migrant landings, a 350% increase over the same time last year. The state.
Now, when my grandfather made the crossing from Europe to here, and he was an honorable whatever with the Red Cross, and his wife was born in West Virginia, in North America. They have family in the small town in the Alps in Italy, and they made that crossing. So when they came over, it was by permit. Like he had to ask for permission. There was some kind of process. He came over, he had to go back, and then there was a process. There was not like everybody just huddled onto a boat and hoped for the best. I don't understand how any people are allowed to just bum rush in. I mean, again, it seems like guerrilla warfare, being GUR, the warriors. Right, got it. I know that there's a big group that's really like proud of that word and that last name, but it has warfare attached to it. And currently, some of the rest of us are at effect of just how powerful it's being used and not really spoken of or addressed in any kind of way that protects some of the others that are here that have national security concerns, including withholding someone from being able to get to colony and company and like an inroads to a profession or even a word construct into something that like I could just absorb into that already exists, almost like as like a super family or a pseudo family, and then contribute that way. None of that has been extended to my person in any meaningful way that I've been able to actually take hold and have like consistency in safety. But this is what's going on at the border.
The state of Florida has now deployed dozens of additional law enforcement officers and resources to the Keys, too. You can generally tell where a boat is from based on its size. Smaller ones like this one, which are built away from the watchful eye of the Cuban government, are typically from that island nation. The larger ones are usually from Haiti and can carry hundreds. The boats that now litter the Keys, made of anything that might float, tell of the desperation. For Cubans, it's political persecution and a further crumbling economy. For Haitians, it's poverty, hunger, and gang violence. Adam Hoffner is Assistant Chief Patrol Agent for Border Patrol's Miami sector.
There are many hazards at sea on board one of these vessels. There's not even, seats for them to sit in. They don't have any life preservers, things like that.
He says migrants arrive dehydrated and sunburned. At least 65 have died at sea since last August. Back on patrol, these agents hope fewer will attempt the journey.
It is extraordinarily dangerous to cross 100 miles of open ocean in a homemade vessel. It's just not safe.
The Biden administration says that those intercepted at sea will not be eligible for new legal pathways created for some asylum seekers. The agents here are hopeful that their message is getting across, either because word of deportations is spreading or because of their increased presence in this area. At least over the last week, the number of migrant arrivals dropped. Vlad?
All right, Manny, thank you very much. Coming up.
And now, it did not get lost on me that Ohio had to send their trained representatives to Florida in case, it seems like Florida's under some kind of duress, it looks like, with all of these ships coming over. And I question, based on the amount in Texas and Florida, just how clean their operations are. So I'm glad to hear that people from Ohio coming in as reinforcements makes sure and like an oversight to whatever's going on in the area, because now in Florida's school system, it seems they're offering some textbook that they've written about African studies. We're North America, and I don't understand, like, if we're having trouble in the here and now, and from the time frame that I've been here with educational and opportunity for what already exists, adding in all these extra pieces just seems like it's detracting from national security and from the children of tomorrow, because we've already inherited problems from children of yesterday before we arrived.
All right, let's break into this. Let's talk about what's happening in Florida. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump is threatening to sue the state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis. Here's the reason. Last week, Florida's education department rejected a proposed advanced placement high school course on African American studies. That is a college prep class. The department listed, quote, concerns about the curriculum, including topics covering intersectionality and activism and Black queer studies. Florida's Stop Woke law, approved last year, restricts how racism and other aspects of history can be taught in schools. Crump, joined by students and activists yesterday, accuses DeSantis of violating the federal and state constitutions. Listen.
What this really is about is saying you cannot exterminate us, you cannot exterminate our culture, and you can never exterminate the value of our children to this world.
Now, how many generations apart was that whole group that are now here and trying to do this? I mean, like in New York, they were showing this week something about 4 major US cities have a complete disruption in management. I mean, again, it's guerrilla warfare. And then they're billing taxpayers in order to grow stronger. That's how guerrilla warfare works. Or at least that's how they explain it on Google when you try to research, like very primitively or rudimentary, the main idea or the main points of how it functions. Why anybody would allow it to grow or fester, I'm not clear.
The College Board, which developed the African American Studies curriculum, says the official framework of the course will be released next week. It will replace the pilot program incorporating feedback from high schools and colleges. A College Board spokesman declined to comment when the Washington Post asked whether the curriculum was being adjusted because of the DeSantis administration's concerns. The Florida Department of Education says the state will reconsider the class after examining the new curriculum.
Now, my question is, can these people that are there, can they provide documentation that they actually had a legal crossing into like the United States of America? Were they actually extended invitation through some formal process that the US accepts and recognizes? Because I get that they're here. I get that they're powerful, they're educated, they've got jobs, they've got union ties, they've got voices and children now, and everybody's so proud of their public enemy status. But my question now is, I've been hearing on the news the reporting by several different areas that they're calling, now that somebody's been what they call naturalized through something I can't even verify, once they get here and anchor themselves here, then they're calling over and bringing more and making like this pathway to bring in and sponsor and things. And that seems really frightening on a epic scale. Now the communications and the ability to, like, I mean, it just seems like such a expansion at once. I don't understand how law and enforcement is able or is keeping up with keeping down some of the internet and communications traffic and the misleading and the false documentation and the false entries and this rather large, troublesome, ongoing and reoccurring. And then as like generations go on, I mean, like, it doesn't even seem like they're broadcasting the story properly. I mean, bits and pieces, but again, only if you question the nature of your reality in just the right way. So that's, I mean, again, showing how now the school curriculum is changing. Now, I don't want to have bad mojo or bad juju or bad whatever with any of the API section. I am an actual I respect whatever in like a Hamlet and Horatio and just respectful of each other's space and the coexistence in this area or this hamlet or this station or this village or whatever that's currently going on at the moment. I'm just respectful. There's a commercial that's going on in the city of New York, in Long Island as well. There's been some kind of campaign through something called a LIPA, LIPA, or it could have been PSEG, also Con Ed, CONED, put out these to upgrade to more energy efficient light bulbs. They've moved from the acceptable for the eye without disruption with the retina and with the neurological, the acceptable soft yellow watt. They've recalibrated the commercial spaces, and now there's these high UV radiation light bulbs that they've introduced, which I call it violent light, VIOLENT, instead of violet, VIOLET, because it actually hurts the eyes. And it's this burning white, blue, violet spectrum on the photon scale of electricity and the lights. And I mean, I don't know if that's part of, like, with the watching of the TV, which is why I wear it with sunglasses to try to protect my eyes, but it's also the sunshine when I go outside lately. There's been so much disruption. Even the caliber of the sunlight with the cloud and the chemical interaction, it just seems like there's a different chemical photon in the light spectrum that my body goes out and has to experience, because I don't know how to correct this level of light. But they have a commercial on right now.
If you've had thyroid eye disease for years, and the pain in the back of your eye is forcing bad words from your mouth.
Bad words from your mouth. Now, again, if I go back to like philosophy class and theological, and I go back to the civilized and how, and then the religious as part of that with no curse words. There's certain words that are acceptable, certain words that are not acceptable, especially for a lady to speak. I'm caught in a really dangerous entrapment at the moment between all of these said functions and how the language actually works based on what the modern trends are. I think of language in this area I don't normally use it on certain conscript. I'll use it almost like a chef in a kitchen. You can have multiple colored peppers and you can put them into a pot and you can have plain peppers. And then there may be somebody who adds jalapeno. It's a different word. It's a different description. You have somebody paint with garlic or oil or something. And then it adds to the flavor of it, but it gives it a different texture, different taste, a different feel, and a different experience. It's the same thing with language.
Or the bags under your eyes are looking more like purses. It's not too late for another treatment option for thyroid eye disease, also known as TED. To learn more, visit treatted.com. That's treat, T.
Again, I don't know what this means to humans. It's coming through Horizon Therapeutics. And it has a copyright. So for me, I use it in a totally different, in evaluating the nature of this reality in Westworld. I just use it in North America differently than it might be interpreted somewhere else. So that's what's going on. They also, on this particular CBS this morning, which the year is 2023, and the episode is E19 as a reference. They also have this thing with Mike Rowe on about the decrease in jobs with men between the 1950s and now for skilled workers. But again, and I only know from the high school that really Benjamin entered, because the others were taken away from me before high school. And now I have the little one who's still in elementary school. But it was so important for me to have Benjamin enter ROTC. Like, I can't stress that enough. And then something happened and I don't know what it was, and he wouldn't speak about it with me. But I was so proud of him when he tried to make that entry. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.